With Not That Simple playing on repeat in her ears, Susie was engrossed in a mindless hack-and-slash game. Slash after slash, she cut down rows of enemies. After a long time, Susie finally grew tired. She took a big gulp of water and flopped onto her bed in a dar shape. Her phone jolted her back to reality with a WeChat message from her best friend, Xiaohan. "Girl, come out and play. Staying home like a hermit won't get you married." Susie replied with a woof 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 and tossed her phone aside, sinking back into a daze. But Susie underestimated Xiaohan's persistence. As she dove into a second round of slashing, the doorbell and her phone rang simultaneously. With a sigh, Susie opened the door to find Xiaohan standing there with a cheesecake and some juice, grinning at her. "I knew you'd be holed up at home. Since you won't come out, I had to come over. Consider it a royal visit," Xiaohan teased. Susie threw a pair of slippers at her and turned back inside to continue her game. Xiaohan, familiar with the routine, walked in, grabbed some fruit from the fridge, and washed it before entering Susie's room with a peach. Susie took off her headphones and asked, "What am I, a monkey? Why aren't you with your boyfriend? What made you venture into the wilderness to find me?" Xiaohan laughed. "I'm here to support you, to address grassroots issues. By the way, why didn't things work out with that teacher I introduced to you last time?" Susie looked innocent. "He wasn't interested in me. How's that my fault? Be serious. I heard that every time he asked you out, you said you had to work late. When he tried chatting with you, you just responded with, haha. Even Siri wouldn't know what to do with you." Susie, unfazed, replied, "Fate hasn't arrived yet. There's nothing I can do. You're more anxious than I am. I see it now. You really intend to end up single. It's the first time I've seen someone whose goal is to be an old maid. No, your goal should be to be an old artistic woman." Susie had lost interest in continuing the conversation and rolled her eyes at Xiaohan. "So what? It's my choice. I like it that way." Xiaohan persisted. "Susie, I'm telling you, even Grandette said life is a transaction. If you don't sell while you're still valuable, are you waiting until you're worthless?" Susie shot back. "I've seen people sell their children, but selling oneself? Aren't you afraid that when you're finally sold, you'll get a bad review?" "Fine, I can't win against you. I'm unlucky to have a crappy best friend like you. But look, I've found another one for you. He's a colleague of my husband, a total tall, rich, and handsome guy. Look, here's his photo. Oh my, I give up. You're relentless. Last time you touted someone as an academic elite, before that as a future mayor, and now a tall, rich, and handsome guy. Honestly, I care more about your love life than my own. Forget the past. This time, he's 180 centimeters tall, weighs 65 kilograms, works for a Fortune 500 company, has both parents, a house, and a car. How about it, dear? Want to meet him?" Susie tilted her head without saying a word. Xiaohan continued, "Don't tell me you're too busy to meet. No one believes that. How about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow won't work. I've got a movie date." "Oh, come on. Who are you watching a movie with? You're single, remember? How can you be so carefree?" "With a friend. You know him, Yang Chun." "Yang Chun is a total hottie." "Susie, how can you be so close to him and not make a move? It would save me all this trouble." "Don't be silly, you gossip. Our friendship is pure and long-standing. He's so gentle and considerate. He's probably waving a rainbow flag at home. No doubt about it." Xiaohan made an exaggerated gesture. "You think Yang Chun is gay? Are you sure? He never gave off that vibe in school." Susie nodded. "Trust me, he's definitely gay. He's got a sharp tongue and can't go a day without criticizing me. Yesterday, he said I was dressed like I was going to a square dance. The day before, he called my outfit out of style since 2000. He's a neat freak, always picking up after me at my place. He nearly convinced me to shave my head because of my shedding hair. And he's a homebody. His gaming skills are awful, but his cooking is top-notch. He could cameo in an American TV show without any acting skills." Xiaohan thought for a moment, then asked seriously, "Susie, have you ever directly discussed with Yang Chun about him being gay?" Susie was surprised. "Are you crazy? Even though we're close friends, that's not something you just bring up. It would be so awkward. Xiaohan pondered some more. Suzy, you really need to go on blind dates. I can't rest easy with you wasting away like this. As soon as she finished speaking, Xiaohan's phone rang and her tone turned sugary sweet. Hey, hubby, I'm at Suzy's. Can you come pick me up? Okay, see you soon. Suzy shivered with disgust. Can you not do that? You're like a bro when you talk to me, but as soon as you pick up the phone, you turn into a madam from a brothel. Xiaohan pounced on her. Suzy, stop talking nonsense. I'm telling you, this is a modern woman's essential skill. Your problem is you're always acting like a tomboy. Seriously, learn from me, darling. Xiaohan winked playfully. Suzy studied under Xiaohan, learning the so-called essential modern woman skills. 2 weeks later, she was ready to show off her progress and immediately invited Yang Chen over to see the results. Yang Chen spent the entire trip wondering what these essential modern woman skills could be, preparing himself for potential ambushes or violent scenarios. But when he used his spare key to open Suzy's door, he was so shocked that he dropped the grocery bags he was carrying, spilling fruits and vegetables all over the floor. Suzy, with 2 pigtails, wearing a dress and an apron, was cooking. Yang Chen quickly rubbed his eyes. Suzy threw a flirtatious glance at Yang Chen, though it came off more mischievous than seductive. In a sweet and coy voice, she said, Chen, you're here. Yang Chen gruffly replied, Suzy, have you been brainwashed? Suzy twisted Yang Chen's arm. What the hell? This is an essential modern woman skill. You know nothing, yet you dare criticize me. Yang Chen put the startled fruits back into the fridge and said, It's just the 2 of us. Don't pretend with me. If you keep this up, I'll start acting cute to gross you out. By the way, I saw Xiaohan the other day. She said she set you up with a blind date. How did it go? Did he not like you? No, surprisingly, we got along quite well at first. And then? Don't tell me you're no longer single. Suzy, if you go silent on me like this, it's so unfair. No need to worry. This time was even stranger. To sum it up in 4 words, no result. We just couldn't connect. Alright, no big deal. Here, give me the apron. Let me cook something to comfort you. You go play your game. As usual, Yang Chen cooked the meal, and after they ate, he cleaned up and tidied the place. When he came back into the room, Suzy, feeling tired, lay on the bed and called out, It's the middle of the day. Don't go home. Stay here for a bit. I'll make some room for you. Yang Chen settled himself awkwardly on the sofa opposite the bed, his long limbs not quite fitting. Suzy spoke softly. Hey, buddy, do you think I'm just destined to never get married? Yang Chen was taken aback. What nonsense are you talking about? This is just a side effect of blind dating. Give it some time, and don't go on any more blind dates for a while. Suzy slowly shook her head on the pillow. No, it's not that. I think I just don't have the ability to love anyone else. I'm 27 now. My classmates are getting married, having kids, but I'm still alone. Only I truly understand myself. I've been in love with myself for 27 years. I don't think I can love anyone else. Yang Chen was silent for a long time before he spoke. Suzy, that's just in your head. Don't overthink it. When I first met you during freshman registration, everyone else had their parents with them, carrying lots of bags. You were the only one there alone. You looked delicate, but your eyes showed no fear. That kind of strength made you seem so different from others our age. Chen, do you know why I was alone at registration? Yang Chen shook his head. After a long silence, filled with warm sunlight, Suzy finally spoke. I grew up at my grandma's house. My mom and dad didn't want me. My dad left right after I was born. My mom only sent money at the start of each semester. In modern terms, my mom was the other woman. Yang Chen sat up abruptly and looked at Suzy. She remained lying on the bed, eyes closed, expressionless, as if the story she told had nothing to do with her. Yang Chen had never heard her mention this before. My mom always said my dad deceived her. I don't know if it's true. She told him she was pregnant, and he promised her a bright future. But before my mom's dream was even halfway realized, my dad bribed a doctor to find out my gender. He smiled and told my mom he didn't care if it was a boy or a girl because it was their love child. Then, while my mom was back in her hometown for a few months to rest, he quickly took his wife and daughter to a new job in another county and never looked back. My mom couldn't play the weakling, so she had to be strong. When everyone was waiting to see her fall, she chose to have me. She took me to live at my grandma's, without a man, just a child, living like that for over 3 years. After more than 3 years, she met another man. Women always invest the most in relationships, don't they? Even if they've been hurt before, they still tend to forget and rush towards what they believe is true love, like moths to a flame. She quit her job, left me behind, and ran away with a man to a faraway place. After that, as I grew up, my mom became just a name that occasionally sent letters and money. My literate grandmother would read those letters to me, whether I understood or not, always sighing at the end, saying that the address had changed again. When I started elementary school, my mom sent a letter saying she was getting married. I didn't really understand what marriage was, but after that, she stopped writing letters, and the money changed from monthly to once per semester. She would come back to see me during the new year, buy me clothes, but sometimes she'd say, "You're looking more and more like that ungrateful wolf." I knew that even if she didn't hate me, she hated my appearance. Back then, society's attitude towards mistresses was much harsher than now. People felt mistresses affected world peace and hindered historical progress, and their hatred extended to the mistress's children. At least my mom chose to be a mistress. I had no choice in being born and growing up this way. My goal has always been to forget the hatred, to forget my mom, to forget the father I never knew, and to forget that I was the unwanted child. But the more you try to forget, the more it comes to mind every day. The more you fear others finding out, the more you feel like people are pointing fingers behind your back. I learned to say unfair at a very young age. But when has life ever been fair? In this endless courtroom in my heart, I would present my case over and over, but the only response was laughter, never an answer. Since no one loved me, I could only keep loving myself, and eventually, I lost the ability to love anyone else. Susie's voice, though always low, trembled slightly. A few tears fell from her tightly closed eyes onto the pillow. Yangchen walked over, reached out, and hugged her tightly. Susie finally broke down and cried. That day, Susie cried until she gradually fell asleep in Yangchen's arms. Yangchen wiped away the tears hanging from her eyelashes and didn't move an inch. In her sleep, Susie didn't have the angelic appearance described in books. Instead, Yangchen felt she looked unhappy, possibly full of hostility towards the world even in her dreams. Yangchen met Susie in college. He was a year ahead of her and was part of the welcoming committee, helping freshmen with their luggage. Most girls had their parents and other relatives forming a small tour group, so Yangchen didn't get a chance to help anyone. Feeling bored, he unexpectedly saw a petite girl carrying a backpack and dragging a large suitcase. That day, Susie wore a white dress with drawstrings tied around her neck, which Yangchen always remembered. However, after arriving at school, Susie felt the dress was too outdated and never wore it again. Yangchen was a carefree, nonchalant guy, but only in front of others. In front of Susie, he was always the considerate warm guy, the perfect friend, the neighborly brother. He didn't fully understand Susie. They hung out together, and Susie often outperformed him in games. While he prided himself on having finally matured after a long college experience, Susie kept telling him about her bizarre blind date experiences. Just when he resolved to give up and accept his fate, Susie would call him, simply saying, "Come have a drink with me." He would immediately abandon his newfound determination, flush it down the toilet, and head to the supermarket to stock up before rushing to Susie's place. The girl asleep in his arms looked different from any other girl, yet she always tried to prove she wasn't unique. Yangchen knew that during college, Susie only mentioned her grandmother as her relative, but he didn't realize the complexities of her past. He watched Susie quietly for a while, his arm going numb. He gently kissed her forehead, laid her down, opened the door, and left. When Suzy woke up, she felt groggy as if she had been drunk, even though she hadn't. Some burdens, once shared, seemed lighter. But where had Yangchen gone, leaving without a word? Right, she was curious about the effectiveness of her makeover. Thinking of this, Suzy hurriedly called Yangchen. Hey, buddy, how's my modern girl essential skills makeover? Did it shock you to the point of running away? What are you talking about? I've got some big things to handle. Don't change yourself too much. My goddess values individuality. Just wait, I have a big task to do. Yangchen couldn't hide his smugness. You guys are the most critical. I hate it. This is my trump card against straight men. You guys? Yangchen parked his car on the roadside, lost in thought. The jewelry store across the street was having a crazy sale, with loud promotions that were startling. Yangchen took out his phone, dialed a number, and said, Xiaohan, I've run into a big problem, and you have to help. Then he turned the car around, abandoning his original plan. Yangchen vanished from Suzy's life suddenly and without warning. When she called, he said he was busy. When she sent messages, he would reply with a brief after a long time. The first week, Suzy thought he might be on a business trip, but when it continued into the second week, she panicked and frantically searched for him. He wasn't logging into his game accounts, and she couldn't find him at the places he said he'd be. Even with Xiaohan's latest blind date suggestion, Suzy had no one to consult. Suzy was too used to Yangchen's presence. His sudden disappearance made her lose sleep. Despite Xiaohan's constant emphasis on the importance of dressing up with essential modern girl skills before a blind date, Suzy still didn't wear any makeup. She wore a loose, plain-colored long dress and sneakers as she headed out. Before leaving, following her recently developed habit, she dialed that familiar number again, only to find that it was still not answered. Following Xiaohan's instructions, Suzy arrived at the tea house. However, after waiting for a long time without seeing anyone, she became a bit annoyed. Do I really have a face that makes people leave without even saying goodbye? She thought. Although she felt dejected, she was ready to leave. Just as she stood up, she saw a flamboyant person approaching from afar. Holding a large bouquet of roses, wearing a suit and sunglasses, his outfit was extremely odd. Suzy was amused and curious about what this ostentatious character was up to. As he got closer, Suzy suddenly felt nervous. She stared at him intently. The person walked quickly and stood in front of Suzy, then took off his sunglasses. Suzy's heart started beating faster. She thought she was going crazy, as something impossible was happening. Standing in front of her was Yangchen, who had been missing for several weeks. Suzy immediately rushed over and punched him. What are you doing here? Where have you been these past few weeks? I couldn't find you anywhere. I've been busy with blind dates, either on one or on my way to one. What? That's supposed to be my line. Yangchen said, Miss, I am Yangchen, your blind date. Nice to meet you. With that, he handed the flowers to Suzy. Suzy was still stunned and didn't say anything for a long time before finally asking, What's going on? Yangchen pulled out a speech script, and more onlookers gathered around. Many years later, while having dinner, Yang Xiaoyang asked her mother, How did you and Dad meet? Her mother replied expressionlessly, Eat your dinner. We met through a blind date. Yang Xiaoyang, who was just beginning to understand romance, felt quite disappointed upon hearing this. That's so boring. I thought Dad was a pretty romantic guy. Her father, sitting across from her, perked up. Little lamb, don't listen to your mom. Your dad put in a lot of effort to pursue her back then. I even rushed to her blind date to chase her. Yang Xiaoyang, now interested, urged her dad. Dad, tell me more. Her mother sternly said, Stop gossiping and finish your meal. You still have homework to do. And you, she said to her husband, don't start telling tall tales. Remember to do the dishes after dinner. Yang Xiaoyang and her father stuck their tongues out at each other, not daring to argue, and resumed eating. Before bed, her mother scolded her father loudly. What are you rummaging around for at night? Don't you have work tomorrow? Her father carefully pulled out a piece of paper. It was this piece of paper that made Susie cry uncontrollably in front of everyone back then, leading to the long, long story that followed. The speech. Because of you, I've become sharp-tongued, developed a cleanliness obsession, and become verbose. I'm so afraid of failure that I don't dare to confess my feelings. I'm scared that after saying those words, you'll feel even more insecure if you lose me, and I'll have nothing if I lose you. Even if you don't believe in love, in life, or in marriage, you must believe in me. Because you only have me, and I only have you. 100 years from now, there won't be another Susie who lives as authentically and simply, nor will there be another Yongchen who secretly takes photos of you from behind. Time is fleeting, and we are still young. I want to watch the sunrise and sunset with you, see the bustling city, and see ourselves in the mirror. Please, let me stay by your side until you gradually believe that in this world, there is someone who won't leave you even if you call the police. Susie, I love you.